You know, if you take a handful of marbles, like just normal glass marbles, and you drop them down a wooden staircase, they are going to bounce in this completely chaotic, totally unpredictable pattern.
Oh, yeah. Like everywhere.
Right. I mean, the wood grain, the humidity in the air, even the microscopic angle of your wrist when you let them go, all of it creates this totally unique cascade.
Yeah, it's never going to happen the same way twice.
Exactly. If you gather up those exact same marbles, stand on the exact same step, and drop them again, they will never, ever bounce exactly the same way. Because reality is just messy. It is full of friction.
It really is.
And normally when we talk about software, especially complex video games running in a web browser, we expect a similar kind of messiness, you know?
Oh, for sure. A little bit of network lag here, maybe a bizarre physics glitch there.
Right. Or an enemy that spawns on your left today, but then like on your right tomorrow. But today, we are looking at a developer who just dropped a project that mathematically guarantees those digital marbles will hit the exact same pixels at the exact same millisecond every single time forever.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. So welcome to the deep dive. We are dissecting a freshly released GitHub update from literally today, August 13th, 2026, by a developer named Emergent Monk.
Yeah, it's the version 1.2.0 update for a repository called QSOLKCB/games, right?
That's the one. And the mission for our deep dive today is for you and me to figure out how this developer built 3 distinct, incredibly complex eras of gaming directly into the modern web browser using the absolute strictest rules of determinism.
Which means we are looking at a profound architectural statement here, not just, a nostalgia trip.
Right. It's not just retro for the sake of being retro.
Exactly. The core theme across this entire release is an engineering marvel called deterministic simulation. In these projects, everything you see and hear is generated purely from the code itself.
No external files.
None. There are no external image files being loaded, no downloaded MP3 sound effects. Every single action, every enemy movement, every collision is mathematically reproducible to the exact pixel and frame.
Regardless of what computer or browser you're running it on.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how you eliminate chaos like that, we have to start by looking at the foundational layer of this release.
Yeah, the early stuff, right.
Emergent Monk begins by exploring the incredibly strict constraints of a fictional late 1970s console in a project called Cartridge 0. 7 signals.
The specs on this thing are just fascinating.
They really are. So we are dealing with a fictional console named the CZ77. It has a tiny 160 by 192 logical display, and it runs on a fixed 60 hertz, quote, canonical simulation clock.
And it features 7 completely distinct games, right?
Yes. Prison Break, Gridburn, Orbital Siege, Star Talon, Rift Runner, Iron Circuit, and Skywater Command. And these aren't just like the same game with different colors.
Oh no, they are totally separate mechanics ranging from tank combat to puzzle grids.
But the phrase that really caught my eye in the documentation was that canonical simulation clock thing. Wait, does that mean the game completely ignores my actual hardware?
Basically, yes.
Like, if my laptop is 10 years old and struggling just to keep a web browser open, what happens to the game's physics?
Well, the physics remain absolutely identical.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, in a standard modern game, the underlying engine often ties its logic to how fast your specific graphics card can draw the frames.
Okay, so if my old laptop stutters...
Right, if it drops to, say, 20 frames a second, the game engine usually tries to compensate for that. It might calculate a wider jump for a character to make up for the lost time. It's essentially guessing where things should be.
Oh, I hate when that happens. You just kind of teleport.
Exactly. But a fixed 60 hertz canonical simulation clock means the underlying math of Cartridge 0 refuses to compensate. It ticks forward exactly 60 times a second, no matter what.
Wow. So if your screen freezes for a moment, the visual might pause, but the mathematical reality of the game waits for you.
Yes, it perfectly maintains its state.
It makes me think of, like a perfectly choreographed stage play.
Oh, like that. How so?
Well, if you have a stage where every single actor's footstep is mapped out in a massive script-like, Actor A takes exactly 3 steps on beat 4. Actor B turns on beat 7. If you start the music at the exact same millisecond, the dance is identically perfect every single time.
Right.
It doesn't matter if the theater is cold, or if the audience is loud, or if a spotlight flickers. The script is absolute.
What's fascinating here is how Emergent Monk actually proves that the choreography is perfect.
Because anyone can claim their code is deterministic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But mathematically, proving it across different web browsers requires a totally different level of rigor. They achieve this proof through a system they call version CZ01 replay receipts.
I saw this in the notes. I love that term. It sounds like something you get printed out at, like a digital grocery store.
Right.
But practically speaking, how does a receipt rebuild an entire game?
Okay, so imagine you load up Iron Circuit, the tank combat game on cartridge 0. You play a match, you drive around a maze, you shoot a few enemy tanks, and, well, you lose.
Naturally.
When the game over screen hits, the system generates a tiny text string. That's your receipt.
But it's not a video file.
No, not at all. This text string doesn't contain a video recording of your screen. Instead, it tracks the exact starting seed, which is a specific number that dictates the layout of the maze and where the enemies spawn. Then, it records an input ledger.
Meaning it logs that I pushed the up arrow on, say, mathematical tick number 42 and the fire button on tick number 89.
Precisely. It logs the exact hardware-independent tick of every single button press.
That's crazy.
And finally, the receipt includes a tick count of how long the game lasted and a final state digest. Think of the digest as a mathematical fingerprint of the entire board at the exact moment you died.
Okay, so if I take that tiny text receipt, send it to a friend, and they paste it into their browser.
Cartridge 0 uses the starting seed to build the exact same maze. It then feeds your input ledger into the engine. Because the math is absolute, your friend watches a live, perfect recreation of your game.
Every tank turns at the exact same millisecond.
Yes. And when the replay finishes, the engine calculates a new final state digest and compares it to the one on your receipt. If they match perfectly, the determinism is proven.
And doing this with 0 external assets is what really blows my mind. The release notes are like militant about this.
Oh, yeah. Very strict.
Not external ROM files, no custom font files pulled from a server, no runtime dependencies. Instead of mailing you a photograph of a tank to put on the screen, the code acts like a hyper-detailed architectural blueprint.
Right, forcing your web browser's HTML canvas to draw the tank pixel by pixel from scratch every single time you open the page.
And the audio is entirely synthesized through code on the fly, too.
Because everything is self-contained in that blueprint, the developer can subject the code to incredibly aggressive automated testing. The repository notes mention running dedicated deterministic core and real Chromium Playwright regression suites.
Oh, right. So they are using Playwright to unleash a swarm of headless browser robots on the code.
Exactly. They launch invisible instances of Chrome, load up the Cartridge 0 engine, and feed it thousands of historical replay receipts.
Just to see if it breaks.
Basically, these automated tests verify that the mobile layouts work, the touch controls translate perfectly to the simulation clock, and most importantly, that every single receipt generates the exact same final state digest as it did yesterday.
So if a developer accidentally changes a single line of code that causes a tank to move, I don't know, 1 pixel further on tick 500.
The robot swarm flags the broken digest, and the code update is rejected immediately. It is literally aerospace-level software verification applied to a fictional 1970s arcade collection.
Which brings us to a massive evolutionary leap in this update. Proving determinism on a flat 2D grid with a couple of tanks is one thing, but the real world and, modern gaming isn't a 2D grid.
Definitely not.
So how does this logic survive when you introduce the infinite variables of 3D space? Here's where it gets really interesting. We scale up.
Right into the next era.
Yeah. The release notes detail 2 completely separate projects beyond Cartridge 0. There's Vector 0 and BLACKSTAR AGA. I want to dive into Vector 0 first because reading through the physics specifications actually made me stop and scratch my head.
Yes. This is the 6 Degree Freedom, or 6DOF, space combat game.
So you are floating in a 3D void. You have completely free rotational and translational movement. You can pitch, yaw, roll, accelerate forward, slide backward, drift up, or drift down.
You're just totally untethered.
Right. And you are navigating through this hostile environment filled with space mines. I have to admit, I genuinely don't understand this part. Wait, how can free-floating, 360-degree rotational and translational movement in a 3D space still be strictly deterministic? I mean, doesn't free 3D movement usually introduce physics glitches and totally unpredictable chaos?
That is the exact problem that plagues almost every modern 3D physics engine. Floating point math, which uses decimals, is the enemy of determinism.
Decimals ruin everything.
They really do. Think of floating point math like cutting a piece of wood with a handsaw. Even if you measure a plank to exactly 5 feet, the thickness of the saw blade, the angle of your arm, and the dust left behind mean the final piece of wood is always microscopically different.
Okay, I can see that.
If you run a physics simulation using decimals on an Intel processor and then run the exact same simulation on an AMD processor or even a smartphone, the way those different microchips round off the millionth decimal place is slightly different.
And over the course of 10,000 frames, that microscopic rounding error snowballs.
Exactly.
A ship that was supposed to narrowly miss an asteroid suddenly clips the edge and explodes. The butterfly effect just ruins the replay.
But Emergent Monk solves this by throwing away the handsaw and using Lego blocks.
Lego blocks.
Yeah. The release notes specify that the game state is reproducible rather than merely visually repeatable. To achieve that in a 6DOF space, they abandoned standard physics engines entirely.
Wow.
They built an integer-based simulation state. In integer math, there are no decimals. There are no fractions. A number is a whole number.
So a Lego block is either attached or it isn't.
Precisely. There is no microscopic variance. Every position, every rotation matrix, every velocity vector of your spaceship is calculated using strict whole numbers that behave identically on every single microchip in the world.
So even though you feel like you are flying freely through a chaotic, unpredictable 3D minefield, you are actually navigating a perfectly rigid, invisible mathematical grid. The chaos is a total illusion.
The seed-controlled simulation dictates the behavior of the entire hostile environment. And because they used integer math, the developer was able to build what they call steering smoke test isolation.
What does that mean?
They wrote automated tests specifically to verify that the complex 3D steering mathematics, like calculating how a ship drifts when you cut the engines and roll 90 degrees, never deviates by a single integer across different platforms.
Proving 6DOF determinism in a browser without relying on an external physics library is an astonishing technical flex.
It is a massive flex.
And just when you think they've proven their point, we hit the third game in this single update, which is BLACKSTAR AGA.
Yeah, this one is wild.
This project shifts the timeline forward to the early 1990s. The developer describes it as a lost Amiga-style first-person shooter. And for anyone listening who didn't grow up playing computer games in the early 90s, the Amiga was a legendary line of personal computers.
Oh, they were famous for having incredibly advanced graphics and sound capabilities compared to standard PCs of the time.
Right.
The AGA in the title refers to the Advanced Graphics Architecture, which was a specific, highly celebrated chipset released by Commodore.
So BLACKSTAR AGA is designed to feel like a massive game you would have bought in a big cardboard box in 1993. It isn't just a single arena, it's a full deterministic campaign simulation.
Right. It has multi-mission structures, complex map navigation, varied enemies, and different weapons.
But again, all of this content is generated purely from original code. They didn't just rip the graphics from an old Amiga game and paste them into a browser.
No, not at all. They built a mathematical engine that hallucinates what an Amiga game looked and felt like.
Hallucinates, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. To draw a textured hallway or enemy sprite, the code relies on that initial starting seed to procedurally generate the visual geometry directly onto the HTML canvas.
Mimicking the color palettes and pixel structures of the AGA chipset without violating any intellectual property.
Exactly.
But the leap in complexity here is what I really want to dig into. Cartridge 0 proved determinism in a 3-minute arcade game. Vector 0 proved it in a 3D space arena. BLACKSTAR AGA has to maintain determinism across an entire multi-mission campaign.
Which is a whole different beast.
Right. The notes specifically highlight mission-specific completion gates. How do you guarantee that a text string of inputs doesn't completely break down over a 2-hour playthrough?
Well, you have to perfectly maintain the state across every single menu screen, loading transition, and level boundary. Think about what happens when you die in a game.
Usually the game state resets in a slightly messy way.
Right. But in BLACKSTAR AGA, even the game over screen and the terminal inputs you use to select the next mission are part of the canonical simulation clock.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The receipt tracks how long you lingered on the menu, what options you selected, and exactly when you initiated the next level.
So if you are feeding a receipt into the engine to watch a replay of a massive campaign, the system has to enforce those mission-specific completion gates?
Yes, it does.
It has to guarantee you actually completed the requirements in level 1, like finding a key card and reaching the elevator, before it allows the math for level 2 to begin.
Exactly. If a single integer was miscalculated during a firefight in level 1, the replay wouldn't just look weird.
The player would miss the elevator.
Right. The completion gate wouldn't trigger, and the entire remainder of the multi-hour receipt would instantly become garbage data.
That is insane.
And that is the ultimate test of their automated regression suites. The robots aren't just playing a 3-minute tank game anymore. They are feeding hours-long input ledgers into a 90s first-person shooter campaign and verifying that the final state digest matches perfectly.
And they are doing all of this totally offline in the browser.
Completely offline.
So what does this all mean? We've spent this time breaking down the mechanics of fictional arcade machines, integer-based space physics, and procedural 90s graphics. But if you aren't a software engineer or a retro gaming archivist, why does it matter that someone built 3 eras of deterministic games?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to honestly look at the state of our modern digital lives.
Yeah,
We live in an era of software fragility.
we really do.
The tools we use every single day, our productivity apps, our banking websites, our modern video games, are incredibly brittle. They rely on massive, tangled webs of external dependencies, cloud servers, and downloaded updates.
Anyone who plays modern video games knows the absolute frustration of sitting down to play a single-player campaign, only to be hit with a mandatory 100-gigabyte update because the developers changed, like one texture file.
it's the worst.
And then that's followed by a server outage that prevents you from logging into a game you already own.
Or consider web development. A single company updates a core framework or an image library, and suddenly half the internet breaks.
Right, it's a house of cards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What Emergent Monk has demonstrated with the QSOLKCB/games repository is a radically different philosophy of software creation.
They synthesize the core principles of absolute reliability across 3 distinct layers of complexity.
They prioritized explicit reproducibility, completely original self-contained code, and offline-first execution.
There is 0 reliance on proprietary data, 0 reliance on a cloud server to handle physics, and 0 reliance on a fast internet connection. It is a 3-megabyte file that contains 3 entire universes of logic.
It proves that highly complex, deeply interactive states can be built cleanly and independently.
Which goes against everything we're taught today.
It does. We have accepted the narrative that as software gets more complex, it must inherently become buggier, heavier, and more unpredictable. But this project is a mathematical counter-narrative.
It proves that by using strict integer logic, canonical clocks, and automated regression, we can force the chaotic, bouncing marbles to march in perfect unison forever.
And it forces us to reconsider the web browser itself. We are so conditioned to treat a browser as a passive window that downloads heavy, messy media from a server.
But this update treats the browser as a universal, offline virtual machine capable of running flawless simulations using nothing but its own internal math.
Which is incredible. And this raises an important question, and it is something I really want everyone listening to mull over today.
Let's hear it.
We've seen that an entire multi-mission FPS campaign, or a deeply complex 6-axis space battle, can be perfectly preserved and replayed using nothing more than a starting seed and a tiny text ledger of inputs.
Right.
We don't need gigabytes of decaying video files or massive hard drives of patched software to save the experience.
Just a few lines of text.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we can capture highly complex interactive states using such a microscopic footprint of pure math, how might the strict principles of determinism change the way we archive our digital history?
Oh, wow.
Imagine a future where preserving our vast digital culture isn't about desperately saving the final bloated output. What if future historians can perfectly rebuild our interactive environments, pixel for pixel, just by saving the initial spark and the immutable rules of the simulation?
The idea that perfect preservation is just a seed and a ledger away. It completely redefines how we might make our digital footprint immortal. Well, that is all the time we have for our exploration of the v1.2.0 update today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. The pursuit of knowledge is a journey best shared, and we love sharing these hidden corners of the internet with you. Keep questioning the chaos, look for the underlying math and the systems you use every day, and we will catch you next time.